Hey everybody, welcome back to the Barry and Jeff Show. I'm Barry, and in this engine rebuild series, we are rebuilding the engine in this 1985 Ford F150 pickup truck with the 300 inline six engine in it. In part one of this series, we took the engine out of the truck, put it on the stand, tore it down, and now part two is we're honing out the cylinders and reaming the ridge that gets left at the top of the cylinder after it's worn down for many years and many miles. So honing and ridge reaming is in this video. Next videos will show how we polish the crankshaft, put new bearings in for the main bearings and the connecting rod bearings, put new piston rings in it, new valve springs, new lifters. There's a lot of great things we're putting in, including a new higher lift, longer duration camshaft. So a lot of really exciting stuff coming up. Hit like and subscribe if you enjoy watching this kind of video and you're learning something. Also, please feel free to drop us a comment if you have questions or any comments about the process that we're going through here. So enjoy the video and look forward to seeing you in the follow-on videos.
All right, I've cleaned up these cylinders pretty good with some brake cleaner. You can kind of see how smooth these cylinder walls are. They're like smooth as glass. And we do not want cylinder walls that are that smooth. We want a nice cross hatching to help the piston rings seat in the cylinders and make sure that we are able to get some oil up and down in those cylinders. So now that I've cleaned all these cylinders out with brake cleaner, I'm going to put a light coat of WD-40 on them, because as soon as you take off all of the oils, these cylinder walls will start to rust. So I want to make sure that we don't let rust build up in the process here. One other thing I've done here is just covered up all the holes that go into the block. So as I'm honing out these cylinders and I get little particles of metal, I don't want them going into those parts of the engine, because that's just going to make it harder to clean out. So I just covered up all those holes. And so any of the debris that we're pulling out will just fall onto this painter's tape, and we can easily clean that off and not have to get into the engine and clean all that stuff out. Before we start, I want to talk about the tool that we're going to use here. So we're going to use a fixed stone hone. And the reason I want to use this fixed stone hone, there's really two different types of hones you can use. You can use the ball hone, and it's basically just it looks like a big wire brush, but it's got balls on the end of it. And it'll go up and down, and it'll do a pretty good job of honing. But the thing that you don't get when you use a ball hone is you won't see any imperfections in the cylinder. So if there's any low spots or defects in the cylinder wall, that ball hone is going to get into every groove, and it's going to look like you got a nice cross hatching in there. Where using a fixed stone, this will be a flat surface, and it'll evenly hone the cylinder walls, so that if there's any low spots, you'll actually see those, and then you can take care of that. But so that's why we're using a fixed stone hone, and we're just going to use some WD-40. We're going to coat the cylinder, we're going to coat the stones, and the important thing is, for this one, the cylinders are in really good shape, so we don't want really heavy pressure on these stones. We just want the lightest setting, because all I want to do is give it a nice little cross hatching. I don't want to take too much material off the inside of the cylinders. So we're going to use the lightest setting. And the important thing as we go through this is you want to keep this thing moving at a consistent up and down motion, and also a nice, even, slow speed on the drill. So you don't want to go too fast, and you don't want to stop the motion, because you're going to get some uneven spots in there. So really important to go up and down consistently, keep it moving, and keep it at a pretty slow speed. So I'm going to set this drill at this slow speed, and we're going to go ahead and get started and get these honed out here. All right, I'm going to start at the number one cylinder here. I'm just going to give a nice coating of WD-40 in there. It is important that we have these things lubed up pretty good, and coat my stones. And now we can go ahead and start the process here. So we're just going to slip those in there, and I'm just going to start going up and down. And we want to do this until we get all the glaze off the cylinders. So it's going to take a little while. Again, just up and down consistently. Keep that thing moving. Keep it centered. Keep your speed consistent. You don't want to go too fast. And again, we don't want to take a lot of material off here. We just want to get a nice cross hatching on there. Take all the glaze off. So we're not taking much material off because there's not a lot of pressure on the stones. All right, so I've got some good cross hatching in there. I don't really see any low spots in the cylinder, but I noticed up here at the top there's a bit of a ridge where the piston was topping out, and got a little bit of a ridge that my fingernail can catch on. So I want to focus on getting as much of that ridge out as I can. All right, so on that number 5 cylinder, you can kind of see some little low spots in there. Right there, you can see a little bit of a low ring there. And again, we're not being able to get the cross hatching all the way up because we got that lip at the top of the cylinder. So I got to figure out how to get that honed a little bit better. So one of the important things that we have to do in preparing this engine block is not only do we have to hone out the cylinders, but especially for engines that have high mileage, like over 100,000 miles, what's going to happen is the piston, when it goes up and down, that top compression ring is going to wear part of that cylinder wall down, but it's going to leave a ridge. And if you can kind of cut in here and show, I started to hone out the cylinder here, but you can kind of see the shiny part up here, and you can see this very clear line where it's a ridge and it will catch your fingernail. And so we have to take that ridge off because that could end up breaking your piston rings. And I think when I took the pistons out of this engine, I broke a couple rings, and that's probably why, because of that ridge caught the piston rings. So what we're going to use here is a ridge reamer, and I've already got it in the cylinder here, but it's basically, it just fits in the cylinder, and it has one cutting tooth on one of these 3 parts of the reamer here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to oil that up a little bit. It's got one little blade, and we're just going to use in this case, I'm using a torque wrench as leverage, and you're just going to turn this around pretty slowly. You're going to give it a few turns, and this thing is going to shave that ridge metal off. And then every so often you have to crank it down just a little bit to make it even tighter, to keep grabbing that metal. And we're going to keep doing this until we feel that there's no ridge anymore. We can't feel any ridge, and it's nice and smooth. And then we'll go ahead and hone out the rest of that cylinder so that there's good cross hatching all the way from the top to the bottom. So if you've never done ridge reaming before, this is the process. It just goes in the cylinder. We got these little tabs that ride on the top of the cylinder here to keep it right in the right spot. But the blade on this thing is only about a 1/2 inch long, so it's only going to get the top 1/2 inch of the cylinder, and it's going to shave down that little bit of ridge. So we're going to do this to all the cylinders, then we're going to go back and hone all the cylinders one last time, and then clean out the engine block. So that's how we do ridge reaming. Stay tuned for the rest of the video where we finish out reaming of or honing the blocks and getting the pistons prepared to go back in the engine. Well, the ridge is reamed down pretty smooth. I don't know that they're perfect, but they actually look pretty good. So we're going to do one last round of honing, and we'll be done with that part. So I'm just going to do one more quick honing here. And again, I got the setting on this hone at the lightest setting, so I don't want it to take a lot of material off. I just want a nice light honing, and I want to get a nice cross hatch. all the way up and down the cylinder. So we're just using a fairly low speed and just consistently moving up and down. Get a nice even hone on those cylinder walls. Yeah, that's actually looking really good in there now. Really good. If we're good on that one, yeah, that looks great. Don't see any low spots. I'm really happy with that. So we're just going to do that to the rest of the five more cylinders here. We'll be done with honing, and we can flip this thing back over, get it cleaned out, and put the new bearings in.